It's a brand new week. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Business Morning. 55 minutes of current and relevant business conversation. That's what we do here. I'm Ini John McQuan. We start, as usual, from the global space. Oil prices were volatile on Monday after surging 7% on Friday as renewed strikes by Israel and Iran over the weekend increased concerns that the battle could widen across the region and significantly disrupt oil exports from the Middle East. So we see from this morning the numbers, it's green, that's a 0.08%. We saw about 7% on Friday. So $74.29 a barrel after it's gained 0.08%. For WTI, it's 0.29%. And then it's at $73.19. We see normally the difference between WTI and Brent is about $4, but for today, it's not the usual, 74 for Brent and 73 for WTI. And of course, it's because of that war going on from Israel to Iran. Iranian missiles struck Israel's Tel Aviv and the port of Haifa on Monday, destroying homes and fueling concerns among world leaders at this week's G7 meeting that the battle between the two enemies could lead to a broader conflict in the region. An exchange of strikes between Israel and Iran on Sunday resulted in civilian casualties for both militaries. And of course, the world is watching this and is having overspilling effect on other countries, including Nigeria. And that's why the Center for Promotion of Private Enterprise has been sharing concerns on the consequences of the Israeli-Iran war, which include energy cost escalation following a 15% jump on crude prices, implication on inflation, interest rate, and the squeeze on profit margin for especially manufacturers in the country. The Chief Executive Officer, Dr. Muda Yusuf, in a statement notes that there are also upsides to this development, such as improved revenue for the government, since the oil sector accounts for about 50% of their income, and the outlook of more incentive to oil and gas investment. But Dr. Yusuf observed that the government intervention may be required to balance the uncertainty and the upsides created by the surge in crude prices. And of course, other than CPPE, a whole lot of people have been talking about the consequences of this surge in oil prices. So while it's good on the one hand because of increased revenue for the government, on the other hand, we may see an increase in the pump price. Also, what's that doing to the availability of crude in the country? Well, that's what we want to discuss now with the Publicity Secretary of Koran, Mr. Eche Idoko, joins us from our Abuja studio. Mr. Idoko, good morning and welcome to the program.
Yeah, good morning, Ini. It's good to have you once more after such a long time.
Great. So what are your concerns? CPPE, on the one hand, has listed some gains and some uncertainty that may come from this Israeli war. For you as a stakeholder, a player in the value chain of a refinery in Nigeria, what are your concerns?
Okay, so for us, right now in Koran, we're feeling like we are some potent prophets at the moment. Sometime last year, we had, when we were making case for the reason why we need to have the Naira for crude policy in place, or continue the Naira for crude policy as it were, we had said that there were possibilities of international uncertainties such as this that can cause price volatility, and we needed to insulate ourselves as a nation. And this has come in to confirm what our assertions were. As it were, what is happening in the Middle East will no doubt affect the prices of commodities, and even the cost, because it will affect the whole supply chain arrangements, and then, of course, the tail to the cost of petroleum products. And for economies that are directly exposed to international pricings and the dollar, this would affect them negatively. But like we said, if the Naira for crude policy kicks in properly, and the government gives adequate attention and priority to local refining, we should be able to stem the tide and count home our gains, as it were, as it was in the case of the Gulf War windfall.
Yeah, but how does that help out? I mean, the Naira for crude, because even in Nigeria, crude is still priced using international values. So, I mean, how do we get a shield through the Naira for crude?
So, two things. First of all, if you are doing the Naira for crude, which like in my statement, I did mention that it has to be two ways: the Naira for crude, and then you also ensure local supply. When you're doing local supplies, you're cutting out the exposure that freighting would give you as an economy. So you cut out the high rise of cost in freighting, because right now shipping has jumped by almost $1 million if you are moving through the Suez Canal, as the case may be. But if you are doing a local transaction now, you are cutting out the cost of freighting. Then in terms of the Naira for crude, we had actually said that rather than use international pricing templates for local refineries like the Brent or WTI, we should identify a local Nigerian pricing template. So when you are dealing with the local refineries under a protectionist program, you are giving us a fixed price that will not be affected by whatsoever is happening in the international market. And if this is implemented fully, we should have some level of stability in terms of our local supplies.
But is that allowed? I mean, being a signatory of OPEC, aren't we bound by the international price?
Well, interestingly, every country does have a price protectionist program that helps their economy. In our recent publications, was published in some of the local dailies as well, we made a case for a need for the federal government to push aggressively an economic protection program. I know the presidency did launch a Nigerian First program recently, akin to the American First program by the United States. So it's a normal for a country to develop a program that will protect its economy, and it's not in any way in variance with whatsoever OPEC has said or not. It's for our domestic consumption. We need a pricing template that will make our people to buy products at affordable rate. And you can see at a time when the economy was beginning to recover, when the economic policies of the government is beginning to show some positive signs, it will be a no-brainer to put in place checks that can protect these fragile gains that we are seeing. Allowing the economy to be exposed to the volatility as a result of the Middle East product insecurity would be more or less like shooting ourselves on the foot.
Then on the other hand, I mean, Nigeria also has obligations that were entered even before now with our crude. So, I mean, those also should be given priority.
Yeah, but also the PIA provides for the DCSO, the domestic crude supply obligation, and as a law, it takes preeminence, and this is in spite of whatever other agreements that any other agency of the government had entered with other people in terms of obligation. There are conversations going on around the DCSO and the DCRR, as the case may be. We have also recently stated that there's a need for the government to also step up the implementation of the DCSO. If the letters of the guidelines of the DCSO are followed, we shouldn't have a problem. There's a quantum of crude that is designated for local refining, and the DCSO gives us a guideline as to how that should be administered.
Okay. So, I mean, when we put all of this together now, we see the reality. The Israel-Iran war is already upon us. You're talking about hedging, protecting the domestic refining sector in Nigeria, and of course the consumers also, because this will trickle down to the price at the pump. What do you think the government can do at this time in the midst of all that's already happening?
Yeah, the government already have put in place mechanisms, credit to them. It's just for them to be committed and follow through. The agencies should be mandated and follow through on the policies that have been put in place by the government. One of that is to enforce in full the Naira for crude policy, expand it so that other refineries, not just only those producing PMS, other refineries can also access Naira in crude. The DCSO implementation should be carried out religiously. Members of OPTS and the producing companies should be mandated to obey the obligations under the DCSO guidelines as provided in the Petroleum Industry Act.
And then recently, I saw your write-up on some of the reforms of this administration, and I think top on the list on your mind is the subsidy removal, and you did say that in 2022, 4.4 trillion naira was spent on subsidy, and now that subsidy has been removed, you seem to be asking, where is that money going to? Where has it gone to since 2023, and what has it been used to do? I wonder if you found any answers to some of those questions that you raised.
Yeah, What was our expectation was that after the subsidy was removed, we're going to see a flurry of activities in terms of investment around the midstream and downstream, in terms of most of the infrastructure in the downstream are moribund. The pipelines, the tanks hinterland. We also thought that we would see a development fund for those in the refining space that they can draw from so that we can have more refineries come on stream, and those ones on stream that are not producing PMS can also put on reformers that can produce PMS. So we're thinking that the savings from payments for refinery can be used, savings from the subsidy can be used to finance this. As it were, we haven't seen any serious activity in terms of the revamping of the depots, hinterlands, and the pipelines for the evacuation of petroleum products. We haven't seen the setting up of a special fund for development of local refineries. These are things that we thought that the savings from the subsidy would have been used to cater for, but we haven't seen any of this. So we're hoping that it's not too late, that most of the savings from these subsidy payments would be channeled towards this, especially in the face of what is happening globally. Recently, you had Dangote announcing that he had bought trucks for distribution of petroleum products hinterland. We were thinking that these are things that the government can come in to do, revitalize the pipelines that are broken down, so that we can begin to use it. There are places where you can't use trucks for. And we all agree that in the face of the state of our roads, it would have been safer to use pipelines which are already existing, the pipeline networks which are already existing, to distribute products into the hinterlands and upland countries, parts of the country.
But I mean, we have heard or seen some stories of new assets, the hope of increase in crude and all of that. Aren't those parts of perhaps the reforms that this administration has embarked on?
Yes, and like I said, also in our document, that particular document that you referred to, we also hailed the efforts of the government. We have seen divestments in the upstream that led to a lot of producing a lot of assets now that were hitherto latent be coming into production. Many more would come in as the year winds down, and this will no doubt, we hope, will no doubt impact in terms of access to feedstock for some of our members as the country ramps up its output. It's something that we really commend the government on, and particularly the NUPRC for their proactiveness in terms of getting more investments to come in the way of the upstream. But we are saying that they should go further and make definite pronouncements as we begin to increase this output. There must be a significant portion of this output earmarked for domestic refining, and this should be clearly stated out in the extant documents, either the reviewed PIA or the DCSO, as the case may be.
And also in that document, you talked about refining for prosperity. I had a guest last week asking the NNPCL what's going on with refineries. Perhaps since you are an intricate part of the oil and gas industry in Nigeria, what's the state of refineries?
Well, NNPC, though we have invited them severally, NNPC is not yet a member. And we hope that very soon the NNPC will join Quran, being a major stakeholder in the refining space. So I may not be able to speak a lot to what is happening with the refineries run by the NNPC. But what I know in terms of what is happening with us is the private refineries majorly, is that we have quite a number of refineries that had reached FID in the first quarter of this year. Many more, about 2 or 3 will be reaching FID in the second half of this year. And then we know that Aradel, one of our members, their PMS production line should be coming up on stream very soon. Recently, Dangote is in the news. You hear that he's expanding the supply, the logistics for supplies of petroleum products to up country with the acquisition of more trucks and signing agreements with a lot of sales outlet. So a lot of activities for it's happening with the operations of refineries that are privately owned and privately run. But like I said, for the NNPC refineries, we don't have a lot of information on what is happening with them.
So for Koran, what is refining for prosperity?
Yeah, so for us, we feel that it is that with refining, we can quickly stem the tide in our economic growth, in the sense that from local refining, we are going to create more jobs. An average refinery in Nigeria, an average 5,000 barrels refinery in Nigeria has the potential of providing 2,000 direct and indirect jobs. Imagine if we have a dozen of those running in Nigeria. It will give us the energy security that we need. It will also provide a means of effects, because with the tide recently, Nigeria is fast becoming an export hub for refined petroleum products. Right now, the Dangote refinery supplies the largest amount of aviation fuel to Europe. We have a lot of our West African and Sub-Saharan African neighbors looking into Nigeria for refining opportunities. You know what's happening in the area of gas, and that gas forms a major part of the downstream activity as well, which is somehow related to what we do in the refining space as well. So that economic prosperity that this administration will want to push, it is our conviction that that the refining segment would lead that charge in leading Nigeria to the new phase of economic prosperity that we envisage.
All right, thank you so much for sharing your vision with us from the Crude Oil Refinery Owners Association of Nigeria, Koran. Mr. Echedoko, thank you for your time.
You're welcome. Thank you.
All right, we're still in the oil and gas space now, telling you what Dangote is planning. The petroleum refinery has announced plans to begin the distribution of premium motor spirits, that's petrol and diesel, to marketers, petrol dealers, manufacturers, telecoms firms, aviation, and other large users across the country, with free logistics to boost distribution network. And that is supposed to start August 15. To ensure smooth takeoff of the scheme, the refinery says it has invested in the procurement of 4,000 brand new compressed natural gas powered tankers. And this phase of the program will continue over an extended time frame. The refinery is also investing in compressed natural gas stations, commonly referred to as daughter booster stations, supported by a fleet of over 100 CNG tankers across the country to ensure seamless product distribution. They say that this is an evidence of its commitment to eliminating logistics costs, enhancing energy efficiency, promoting sustainability, and supporting Nigeria's economic development. Under this initiative, Dangote says all petrol stations purchasing PMS and diesel from them will benefit from this enhanced logistics support. In addition, the refinery will offer a credit facility to those purchasing a minimum of 500,000 litres, allowing them to obtain additional 500,000 litres on credit for 2 weeks on the bank guarantee. Well, Alhaji Dangote had told us earlier, I think last week or so, that we should expect a news that will revolutionize the sector. I wonder if this is it, and we'll see how it goes from August 15th. Now, away from oil and gas, the central bank has directed banks operating under regulatory forbearance to suspend dividend payments and bonuses for executives and halt investment in foreign subsidiaries or offshore ventures. According to a statement from the financial markets regulator, the move is part of a broader instrument to reinforce capital buffers, improve balance sheet resilience, and ensure prudent capital retention within the Nigerian banking sector. The statement explains that the directive applies specifically to banks currently benefiting from forbearance in relation to credit exposures and single obligor limit breaches, conditions that suggest potential stress in the affected institutions. It adds that the suspension will remain until the CBN is able to independently verify the capital adequacy of the banks. The China-Africa CEO Forum held alongside the 4th China-Africa Economic and Trade Expo in Shenzhen brought together business leaders, policymakers, and innovators to discuss strategies for deepening economic ties between Nigeria and Africa. Laddie Williams was there all through the week and the weekend and sent in this report.
All roads lead to the Changsha International Conference Center as the D-Day arrives, located in Changsha's high-speed railway new town with a total area of 212,700 square meters, boasting of a design that combines traditional Chinese aesthetics with Hunan's cultural elements. Executives and policymakers make their way into the hall.
Well, I can feel the energy right here. It's charged right here in Changsha, China, and we see conversations are moving along at this point, and it's still all about China and Africa at this point.
First off is welcome speeches from policymakers from China and Africa.
Ghana and China enjoy a strong, evolving economic partnership, and China remains Ghana's largest trading partner, with bilateral trade between the two countries reaching a whopping $11 billion in 2024.
These are the trends we're seeing, and these are the trends we want to encourage. Let the story of China and Africa not be told in the language of extraction, but of elevation.
Chief Diana Chen, Chairman, Choice International Group, highlights the importance of relationship between Africa and China, making a case for more collaboration in a welcome address. Then it was time for knowledge sharing and roundtable discussion, with panelists made of leaders in capital markets and financial services. Top on the agenda is how financial institutions are innovating to grow Africa-China capacity.
Usually, when you have a middleman role, you expect that that middleman will add value, and therefore, whatever it is that you pay to the middleman makes sense.
How do you open Chinese capital into Africa, financial capital now, and vice versa? This could be everything from the way around dual listings. How can we get corporates from Africa, whether they're local corporates, whether they're Chinese corporates, to be able to raise capital through dual listing mechanisms with exchanges globally, or the reverse?
Focus then shifts to energy and how enterprises can leverage green energy for sustainable development.
Building, at some point, the
CEO Owando Energy speaks on what the company has done so far.
Structure, moving gas from the southern part of Nigeria across the southwestern region, providing gas for industrialization. And then we moved into the drilling business, buying 5 swamp rigs at a time, and just building local capacity for expanding indigenous play within the oil and gas sector.
And then the icing on the cake, launch of the Fund for In-Depth China-Africa Economic and Trade Cooperation and other agreements.
Laddie Williams, reporting for Channels Television News.
Welcome back. It's still Business Morning right here on Channels Television. Let's move away from oil and gas for a bit, and China, of course, and see what's happening in the real sector. We talked a bit about reforms, the Bola Tinubu reforms, administration's reforms, and the impact it's having on the oil and gas sector. Let's see what's happening to manufacturers, and we have right here in the studio the Chief Executive Officer of Faye Limited, Princess Layo Kelwo, right here. Princess, good morning and welcome to the program.
Good morning.
Yeah, so, well, you are known, people wouldn't have thought of investing in envelopes, but we know you in Nigeria as one of the largest manufacturers of envelope in the country, but you've even gone beyond that. Now, I would like for you to take us through your experience, your journey, especially with this administration led by President Bola Tinubu, the reforms that have come into play and how it has affected you and your journey as a manufacturer.
Thank you very much. We are not one of the largest. We are the largest envelope manufacturer. It's been very, very tough, honestly. It's been very, very tough, especially when it comes to somersaulting policies, 1. Then 2, the aggressiveness of the MDAs. I guess the target they are being given, they just feel that because FA is at number 2 Adu Street, you have to go there and milk, which is giving us a lot of frustration. For example, look at the ports. Now, it has gotten to a stage that they will be telling you for this iPad, oh, you bought this iPad 100,000. Are you the manufacturer? You are customs. And they will put their foot down that 100,000 must be paid, calculated into millions. Where do we pass this cost? They are just heating up the economy. Manufacturing is the bedrock of every economy. But all this thing is frustrating. Congestion at the ports, not because we don't want to collect our consignment, but because of the customs wants to put all these costs down our throats, either we like it or not. And we have to pay. Because we are at their mercy. They'll say, oh, if you want to contest, yes, you have the right to contest, but go to Abuja. Before you go to Abuja, contesting, coming back, you have demurrage. Demurrage with the shipping company, demurrage with the ports authority, all these costs, they should allow manufacturers to breathe. The atmosphere is tense. We need encouragement, not frustration. We are not rogues. We are doing genuine business to build Nigerian economy.
So, I mean, the picture you have painted seems really opposite of, the issue of ease of doing business. Princess, I'm glad what you didn't go with ease of doing business by the government, innovations at the ports. Are you saying these things are just on television and on paper?
The point is that, yes, there is ease of doing business. It's like robbing Peter to pay Paul. You must get 2 billion in before the end of the year 2005. Where do they get it? Milking manufacturers.
So you're saying that customs, instead of regulating trade, now seems to be a revenue generating?
Yes. All they do now, for example, if you travel abroad, if you are buying this skirt suit, yes, you know how much you bought it. The manufacturers too know how much they sold it to you. They will say, oh, they've gone online. This skirt suit is this. No, we have been in business. We have integrity. And we don't want to soil our name. Why do we have to go into that? They know the traders. They know the traders that does this type of things. But manufacturers, the atmosphere is tense. We need a lot of encouragement rather than discouragement, because all these costs will be passed to the end users.
So do you think that, part of the tax reforms is that only the FIRS would be, in charge of all of this? Do you think that could be a solution? Or do you think it is the issue with the human beings, the people themselves, not necessarily customs as a body, that are carrying out this responsibility?
With due respect, the tax reform is a beautiful idea if it's well implemented. Well, I will not say, I don't want to support the customs here, but I will not say it's, yes, there are a little bit of human accidents along the line. But if they are not being pushed, that this revenue, you must get it, where will they get it? Will they cut their finger to get it? Of course, they are going to pass it to whoever is importing into the country. But for us as manufacturers, they should even empathize with us.
But most of the time, it is the customs that give themselves targets, and they come out to celebrate how they have hit that target.
Well, yes. I don't know what they are, whether it's the federal government that gives them targets or customs gives themselves, but everybody will want to rub their shoulders that I am doing a very good job, but to the detriment of the manufacturing sector. This has to stop.
All right. You also talked about policy somersaults. Could you give an example, maybe a recent one?
So many things. So many things. If you look at the, for example, while I was much more younger than this, I was part of the people that bidded for the paper mills. I'm talking of my own sector now. I was part of the people that bidded for the paper mills, and because we have this group then, Stationery Manufacturers Contact Group, Baba Chief Obagun was our chairman then. He too was part of it. We all formed a coalition then to buy the paper mill. Lo and behold, they said our bid was too low. I don't want to mention names because I'm on air. They sold it to a different individual that does not even know anything about paper mill. Where is the paper mill now? It's nowhere to be found. Well, we thank God for the likes of the Chinese now that they are trying to float 1 or 2 paper mills in Nigeria. But I read something, I shouldn't even forget that, which is very, very important. I read it online. I don't know, maybe it's fake news or whether it's original news, that by the end of December, the civil service will go paperless. I'm not trying. Yes, I'm into paper, but do we have the capacity to go paperless? Do we? We don't. We don't have the capacity to go paperless. The government is crying that, okay, money, this and that. Now, does the government have the capacity to buy this fiber to make sure the whole Nigeria is computerized, or we all have internet all over Nigeria? What of our retirees in Iseyin? What of our retirees in Ilorin? What of all the ministries in Ilorin? How will they run the business of the ministry? Federal civil service will go paperless. Where is the resources? Do we have the capacity? You know, we are fighting so many wars. Thank God there's stability when it comes to foreign exchange. Now, I mean, we need to give kudos to the federal government on that. But all these somersaulting policies must stop. We shouldn't copy civilization to a fault that will be inconveniencing the citizens.
Then you also talked about how, you know, a lot of people come to your premises, one form of tax or the other. Now, when we talk about multiplication of taxes or multiple taxes, a lot of people say it's the non-state actors. The people who come to you, are they state actors? Where exactly are they from?
Well, they are state actors. We have a lot of them. But I think we should give it time for now because of the tax reform. Let's see what the outcome will be. Then, of course, if anything goes the other way around, we'll talk.
Yeah, but you know, you just talked about, you know, you gave an example now that shows compromise in the system. And sometimes it does seem like, you know, ideally we do have what it should be, the right thing. But the human beings who implement this system or carry out this instruction and directive, you know, bring in a lot of compromise. So I guess we should look for how to deal with some of those compromise in the different systems.
I think because of the aggressiveness of wanting to keep their job, they will sniff around. But the sniffing should stop. They shouldn't come to the manufacturing sector because we have a lot of problems. Yes, I think I want to agree with you that there are some human
interference.
Yes. For example, I'm sorry, I have to digress a little bit. About not up to 1 week, I was traveling to Ogiri and there was serious traffic on the road. They said there's this petrol tanker that got burnt. Yes, after spending about 5 hours, if I had even known, I shouldn't even leave my house. After spending about 5 hours to get to where the problem...
The incident.
Yeah, the incident started. All the 4 fire...
fighting trucks?
Yes, that came. They don't have water. Why? It shouldn't be happening. And at the end of the day, in fact, people were telling us that the truck might explode anytime. I had to walk almost a kilometer just to run away so that it will not explode. Why should it happen? So that is part of the human problem and human error. I was there physically.
So
Nobody told me.
So where do we start this correction from?
I guess it's still from the government too. Because the government are the one hiring them. They should learn to hire and they should learn to fire. If you are not doing your work, you should be fired.
Okay, all right. Well, we do hope that we see some changes by this time next year. We won't be looking at the reforms again.
Amen.
Even though, unfortunately, now politics seems to be taking over.
Yeah.
We're seeing endorsements here, and may God help us.
Amen.
Thank you so much, Chief Executive Officer of Faye Limited, Princess Layo Kelwo, for your time.
Thank you, and thank you for having me.
It was a pleasure.
Yeah.
Welcome back. It's still Business Morning right here on Channels Television. Let's head to the global space now with Will Ibon. Will?
Good morning.
Good morning.
Hey, do you know that your risk, your travel to the U.S. right now is at risk? Are you aware of that? I think that visa you're processing. I think you should
I guess it depends on what I'm going there for. Because President Trump will be asking me specifically, please come to our country.
Oh my goodness!
Yes.
I know that for sure. But I think you should just think about it.
Will, Nigeria is not just any country, and I know President Trump knows that too.
Okay.
So he wants to extend the ban on African countries, and he put Nigeria right there on the list. I'm sure he's going to think twice. It's Nigeria we're talking about. We have the population, we have the power. We just don't know how to harness ours very well, unfortunately.
That's unfortunately.
Yeah,
well, let's see if it will...
I didn't see South Africa on that list.
No, South Africa not there. I didn't see it either.
No Namibia?
No, I didn't see Namibia. But
no Liberia?
No, I think those countries are special. But let's just see. Maybe it will tackle, Trump always,
well,
chickens
don't worry.
out.
Our president and our minister of foreign affairs, they're up to the task.
Of course, definitely. Let's just see what Trump is saying about that. The Trump administration is weighing a major expansion of its travel ban to include 36 more countries. A leaked statement, from the department revealed. Now, cited concerns include poor passport security, lack of cooperation on deportations, and national security risk. Countries on the list include Nigeria, Ethiopia, Egypt and Cameroon, which have 60 days to meet U.S. requirements. The move follows an earlier ban affecting 12 nations and is part of Trump's wider immigration crackdown. Now, India's wholesale inflation dropped to 0.39% year-on-year in May, its lowest since March 2024, and this is down from 0.85% in April, official data is showing. Now, the slowdown was sharper than expected, with food inflation easing to 1.72% and vegetable prices plunging over 21%. Meanwhile, fuel and power prices dropped 2.27%. Now, let's still in Asia. Pakistan's central bank is likely to keep interest rates steady at 11% on Monday as the Israel-Iran conflict drives up global oil prices and stokes inflation concerns. Now, most analysts in the poll reversed earlier calls for rate cuts, warning of rising import costs and pressure on the exchange rate. Despite a 4.2% growth target in the new budget, experts say geopolitical tensions and inflation could derail Pakistan's recovery. Now, China's economy is holding up better than expected, with ING forecasting 4.7% growth, GDP growth for 2025, just shy of Beijing's 5% target. This comes as China's retail sales in May grew at their fastest pace since late 2023, and latest data shows that the sales in May jumped 6.4% from 5.1% recorded in April. Also, solid exports and steady industrial production are also helping to offset the impact of the new U.S. tariffs and a weak property market. Now, the spike in sales growth comes as a welcome respite for the world's second largest economy that has been struggling with persistent deflation. Now, Taiwan has blacklisted China's Huawei and SMIC, SMIC, aligning with U.S. trade policy amid rising tensions with Beijing. The move adds both firms to a list requiring Taiwanese companies to get approval before trading with them, citing national security concerns. And now this reinforces existing export rules after a TSMC chip was previously found in Huawei equipment. Now let's see on the sidelines of the G7 what's happening. Big news in Canada. Canada has formally agreed to ratify UK's entry into the £12 trillion CPTPP trade bloc, and this is opening massive new export routes for British business. But what does this truly mean for the growth of the UK? And also, it's quite symbolic. Let's head over now to London, where Juliana is standing by to give us more details. Good morning, Juliana. It's good to have you on the program.
Morning, Will.
Juliana, Canada has, agreed to ratify this deal with UK. They've been in talks since yesterday, having so much, and a lot has come out of there. Can you talk to us about this?
Yeah, I think this is actually quite a big deal and quite a big moment for Sir Keir Starmer and the UK's entire post-Brexit trade agenda. As you quite rightly said, Sir Keir Starmer, the UK Prime Minister, is currently in Ottawa for a major global summit taking place this week, which of course is the G7. And on the sidelines of that, he met with Mark Carney, who is the new Canadian Prime Minister. But we know that in a previous life, Mark Carney was the governor of the Bank of England. So I think he has a pretty forensic understanding of the UK economy. And just to kind of provide some context and background, the Comprehensive and Progressive Agreement for Trans-Pacific Partnership, or CPTPP, neither easy to spit out, but this was formed by, I think it was President Barack Obama. It was then called the Trans-Pacific Partnership. So it includes countries like Japan, Canada, Australia, Malaysia, and Mexico, an area where typically the UK haven't had very strong trade ties. However, the UK formally applied to join in 2021, and now, finally, thanks to this bilateral meeting that happened, Canada has signed off on the ratification. We're not over the ladder just yet. We still are awaiting ratification by Mexico. But, this Indo-Pacific tilt is really important, and it provides long-term access to really fast-growing consumer markets away from the EU.
Okay, Juliana, I'm afraid we're running out of time right now. We would definitely have more time to discuss this in details. But thank you so much for bringing us up to speed as to what's happening in Canada and what to expect for the UK. And we'll probably see a boost in exports and probably trade with other countries and lowering of barriers for the UK with Vietnam and Japan and other Asian countries. Thank you so much, Juliana, for joining us this morning. So, Ini, basically what's happening in the country right now, I mean, in the UK, you see trade, brokering trade deals here and there, and ahead of this G7 summit that's going to happen this week in Canada, we're hoping that more trade relationships will be able to be, dealt with.
Yeah, Will, thank you so much. All right, and just before we go, a bit of home news. Nigeria must realign its processes to foster a comprehensive system-wide transformation that harmonizes policies, partnerships, and platforms, thereby unlocking opportunities for millions of its youth. The managing director of the Bank of Industry, Mr. Olasupo Olusi, emphasized this at the Obafemi Awolowo University inaugural Awards of Excellence in Innovation and Entrepreneurship Development. During his keynote address, Mr. Olusi highlighted that the federal government, through the Bank of Industry, has launched various initiatives aimed at revitalizing the aspirations of Nigerian youth and restoring their confidence to pursue their dreams.
Returning to the familiar grounds of Obafemi Awolowo University in Ile-Ife, Osun State, holds a special significance for the Managing Director of the Bank of Industry, Mr. Olasupo Olusi. He received his early education right here within the university community. The large turnout at the maiden edition of the Award of Excellence in Innovation and Entrepreneurship Development underscores the event's significance. National development takes center stage as the initiative aims to bridge the gap between town and gown, creating a platform for academia and industry to converge for mutual advancement.
This event reflects our renewed dedication to building a vibrant ecosystem that supports innovative thinking, research-based solutions, and entrepreneurial mindsets, particularly among our students. In this era, when societies strive on solutions and not slogans, universities must stand as engines of transformation, places where knowledge meets application, and where creativity drives national development.
In his lecture, Mr. Olusi emphasized the need for Nigeria to look inward, leveraging technology, supportive government policies, and collaborative ecosystems to unlock potential across the value chain. He stresses the importance of aligning skills development, financing, infrastructure, and regulatory support for sustainable growth.
To embrace the fourth industrial revolution, we must overhaul our skills pipeline. We must integrate coding, mechatronics, digital design, and entrepreneurship into our curriculum from secondary school upwards. We must fund STEM programs, innovation labs, and build industry partnerships. And we must bring private sector, academia, and DFIs together to align training with real-world needs.
He encourages Nigerians, especially the youth, to tap into the vast opportunities provided by the Bank of Industry, the country's largest development finance institution. According to him, BOI remains a catalyst for enterprise growth, policy innovation, and youth empowerment across the industrial landscape.
We've introduced the Graduate Entrepreneurship Fund in partnership with the NYSC, helping fresh graduates transform their business ideas into bankable ventures. BOI has invested in innovation hubs across Nigerian universities and communities. These spaces support idea incubation, co-working, STEM research, and entrepreneurship training.
The Minister of Youth, Mr. Ayodele Olawande, and the Minister of State for Industry, Mr. John Eno, also lent their voices to the call for stronger engagement. They emphasized that the renewed hope agenda of President Bola Tinubu's administration can be actualized through entrepreneurship using platforms such as those provided by BOI.
This is the kind of country we want, whereby the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria recognize the edge that can really transform and give the renewed hope to the country.
The future of our country belongs to industry, belongs to entrepreneurship. It doesn't belong in government or government-paid jobs.
Olusi also revealed that the federal government is working towards establishing a youth bank, a specialized institution focused solely on entrepreneurship support for startups and scaling small businesses. Bukola Oriowo, Channels Television News.
Talking about taking the message to the school where the core of the youths are. That's how we end Business Morning for today. Thank you so much for being a part of it. But at 1 p.m. during Business Incorporated, I'll be back with Will to give you another round of journey around and giving you updates from the world of business. That's Business Incorporated. I'm Amy John McQuack. Talk to you later.